Hey YouTube. So yeah, it's Alexis here, and I know it has been like eons since my last update, but I'm finally getting around to making this labor and delivery video. I have been so busy being a mother of 3 that finding the time, like even 10 minutes to upload this video, has been so hard. Because I find once that I finally do get the kids to sleep and get Sophia to sleep and everything, I am just too tired to do anything else. So this is the first opportunity that I've had to actually make this video, and I apologize again for it being so late. But yeah, I finally found some time today, and so all right, let's get into it. As you know, if you've seen my last update, Sophia was born on June 2nd. Now, my due date was June 20th, so she was 18 days early, but she came out perfectly healthy, and she is just doing great. So I guess she was just ready to be born. But I'm going to get into it and let you know how that happened. So a day or two before the 2nd, I noticed that, sorry for the TMI, but I noticed that I was a little more wet down there, like as far as my discharge had increased. It got a little more like watery, but it wasn't my water. It was discharge, but there was definitely a lot more of it. And I had noticed this before I went into labor with my son. The day before I went into labor with my son, I was having this same exact symptom. But I thought, I'm only 37 weeks, so I really didn't put that much thought into it. Just thought maybe it was just, you know, just my body or whatever. And I really didn't put much thought into it. But I did have it in the back of my mind, like, this is kind of like the same thing I went through with Robert. And I went into labor, like, right after that. So, but other than that, the, few days leading up to the 2nd, I felt fine. I didn't feel any different. I wasn't having any false labor. I mean, I was having Braxton Hicks contractions, but nothing like regular or painful. I hadn't had any bloody show. So really nothing else that would have led me to believe that labor was approaching. The morning of the 2nd, I woke up and got my son up, got my daughter up, fed them breakfast. I ate breakfast. I mean, I was feeling completely normal. I had gotten a full night's rest of sleep. So, I mean, I was just feeling like, okay, this is just another day and blah, blah, blah. But then around 8:45 in the morning, I started noticing that I felt very thirsty. And I was starting to feel a little crampy. Sorry, I have an itch on my arm. I was feeling a little crampy, so I kind of thought maybe I was just dehydrated. So I sat on the couch and I started like downing water, thinking, maybe I'm just dehydrated and my body is just kind of reacting to that, because I was still really thirsty. Like, my mouth was super dry, and no matter how much water I drank, like, I still felt dehydrated. So I did that for a little bit and tried to relax, but I noticed that it really didn't do anything. I mean, I was still crampy, and they were getting a little more intense. Kind of just felt like menstrual cramps. They weren't too painful, but I just knew that they weren't right. So I started timing them, and I noticed that they were about 3 to 5 minutes apart, and they were lasting about a minute or so each. So at that point, I started thinking, okay, maybe this could be the real thing, but I still wasn't totally convinced. Like, I thought, well, I'll get to the hospital and the contractions will stop, or they'll give me fluids and the contractions will stop. So, sorry, my arm itches. So, so I really wasn't thinking that this was like really labor yet. But just in case, I started getting myself together. I got myself dressed, brushed my hair, kind of just made sure I had everything I needed for my hospital bag just in case. And I started noticing that they were getting a little more painful. Kind of like to the point where I had to lean over, kind of like hunch down and breathe through them a little bit. But they still weren't like intolerable. Like, they were, I could still tolerate them pretty well, and they weren't, all that painful. But I went and I woke John up and I said, you know, John, I think maybe I need to go to the hospital and at least get checked because I'm definitely feeling crampy. So he was going to let me go on my own and he was going to stay home with the kids. Because we really didn't think that it was like really like today's the day I'm going to have the baby. Like we still weren't convinced about that. So as I'm like, you know, getting the kids, like just getting them together, getting them dressed, blah, 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 they started getting even more intense. Still able to talk through them, still able to do stuff through them, but I could definitely feel that they were getting more intense. So I told John, I said, you know what, honestly, this might be the real thing. Maybe you guys should come with me, or we could drop my son off at the babysitter's, and then, you know, Olivia can stay at the hospital. Maybe his mom will come up there and keep an eye on her and all that, because she was really excited about the baby and she really wanted to be there. So he's like, okay. So, you know, he called out of work. He was supposed to be in work that day. So, you know, we headed to the hospital, and on the way, I mean, I definitely noticed that they were getting a little stronger. Still like, well, actually at this point, they were about 3 minutes apart, still lasting about a minute or so, in length and duration. So we got to the hospital and, you know, got up to the labor and delivery room, and the nurse asked me for a urine sample, and it was at this point that I noticed that I had some bloody show, which I hadn't had before. And I started thinking, okay, this is probably definitely the real thing. I'm not one to have bloody show, you know, days in advance. With all my labors, I had the bloody show right before I had the baby. So in my head, I'm thinking, you know what, this is like really the real, like this has got to be the real thing. So, I get my hospital gown and I get in the, you know, the hospital bed. And at this point, the pain from the contractions practically went away. I really didn't feel them at all. Matter of fact, I didn't even know I was still contracting. Unless I looked at the monitor, I wouldn't even have known that I was contracting. So I kind of thought, okay, well, maybe they're dying out. Maybe it wasn't the real thing, you know, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So the resident doctor comes in and she says, okay, we're going to check you. And she checks me and she goes, you're 8 centimeters already. And I'm like, what? I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, there's got to be something wrong, because I am not even in any pain. And I know with my previous labor, I was in so much pain to the point where I like felt like I was going to vomit. I just had the worst back labor and almost passed out. Like, the pain was so bad. So I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, wow. So she goes, you know, do you want an epidural? And I'm thinking, well, at this point, I'm already 8 centimeters. And I know, like, they have to give you fluids, IV fluids for like an hour before you can even get the epidural, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, no, you know what? I don't think I want the epidural, because I really wasn't even in any pain. And she's like, okay, you know, that's fine. That's your decision. That's great. So in the back of my head, I'm thinking I'm really going to regret this, but I really did want to have an all-natural birth. So, you know, I was really happy. I really was against getting the epidural. I really just wanted to have an all-natural birth this time. So, I don't think I told you guys because I didn't do a 37-week update. My Group B strep came back positive. So they had to hook me up to IV antibiotics and try to get, you know, at least 1 round of antibiotics into the baby. So they did that, and the doctor said basically all that's keeping the baby inside is your bag of water. But I don't want to break it just yet, because I want to give your body a chance to get some of the antibiotics, just so your baby's protected, you know, just in case. So I said, okay, you know, and she goes, but if you start feeling pressure, you know, just let me know, because then we're just going to have this baby. So I was like, okay. So I guess about 12:30, I started feeling a lot of pressure. So I told my mom, I said, Mom, you're going to have to get the doctor. I'm feeling like a lot of pressure, you know, and it was like getting pretty intense. But at the same time, my contractions were still virtually not painless, but they were so tolerable that I could talk and laugh through them and everything else. So like I was still able to function even when having contractions. And honestly, it just felt like kind of like menstrual cramps, like a little worse than regular menstrual cramps. So so I started feeling the pressure, and like that was like pretty painful. So my mom went and got the doctor, and she came in. She goes, "You only have a lip of cervix left." She goes, "We're just gonna break your bag of water, and that baby's gonna come right out." So I was like, "Okay." So they broke my water. And she goes, "Okay, you know, whenever you want to push, whenever you feel the urge to push, just push." So I started getting that pressure feeling again, and I started pushing. Now, with my other 2 labors, I've always had an epidural, so I've never actually felt the pushing process. Like, I felt like that I was pushing, but I never felt how it feels down there, you know, when you're pushing. And it's a lot more painful when you don't have an epidural. And but I could definitely feel when I was having contractions and when I needed to push, versus when I had the epidural. I didn't feel that. They had to tell me when to push because they could see on the monitors that I was having contraction. So I started pushing, and I think it was about 8 pushes. I started feeling the baby crowning, and I started feeling that ring of fire, and out came her head. And then I pushed again, and out came her body. And they go, "You have a girl." And I was like, "Oh my God, like, this is amazing." And I started tearing up, crying, and she came out, and she was just like screaming her head off. And I mean, she was just perfect. She scored a 9 out of 9 on her APGAR test, and she was just absolutely perfect and healthy, and I mean, that's all we could ask for. So she weighed 5 pounds 7 ounces, so she was a little thing, but again, she was early, so I think that's another reason why she was so small. And yeah, so, and then Sophia was born at 12:45 p.m. and it was perfect. They came in later on my chest, and I mean, it was just great. So anyway, so during all that, the doctor's trying to, you know, get my placenta to come out, and she's waiting, and then she's massaging, and she's pulling, and she's trying to get it to come out. Well, my placenta did not want to cooperate. So they give you a half-hour window for the placenta to come out. And if the placenta doesn't come out after a half hour, then they have to resort to other like measures to get rid of, to remove the placenta. So a half hour later, my placenta still refused to come out. And as she was trying to pull my placenta out, the cord broke. So there was nothing else to pull in order to get the placenta out. So the head doctor, the doctor in charge, comes in, and she goes, "Well, you know, if you had an epidural, I could just kind of stick my hand up there and I could feel around and pull it out. But because you haven't had an epidural, I can't do that because it would be too painful." She goes, "So we're going to send you back, and we're going to put you under general anesthesia to remove your placenta." So I'm like, oh my God, like, I just cannot believe this is happening. Like, this is just crazy. I just had an all-natural birth, and here they are saying that they have to, like, put me under anesthesia to get the placenta out. It was, like, crazy. So then they come back about a half hour later, and they said, "Well, the anesthesiologist will not put you under general anesthesia until 8. I don't know. I had to wait, like 6 more hours or something because I had eaten breakfast and all that." She goes, "But we can give you a spinal, and then we can remove it that way." So I'm like, you know, whatever I have to do, you know, I'll do, even though I didn't really want to do it. So they had to take me back to the OR. They had to give me a spinal, which I was so against having an epidural during my delivery. And then I wound up having to get a spinal epidural anyway. And it was just, and the anesthesiologist had such a hard time placing it. And it was just like, it was very stressful, to say the least. So anyway, finally they get the spinal in, and he gave me something through my IV to kind of like make me like a little out of it, I guess, and more relaxed and more comfortable. So I don't remember the entire procedure. Like, I remember like bits and pieces, but I wasn't all there. mentally because of the medication. So I don't remember, but I know it didn't take like longer than 5 minutes. And they finally got my placenta out. So yeah, so an all-natural birth with a hiccup at the end, but at least I can still say that I did have an all-natural birth because, this was something that I just had to do in order to remove my placenta, but it was an experience. So, needless to say, I made it out alive. Sophia made it out perfectly healthy. And my labor and delivery was absolutely perfect. I couldn't have asked for a better labor and delivery. It was virtually pain-free. It was just basically like period cramps. I was extremely lucky. And everything just moved so fast from start to finish. My labor was 4 hours. And that was with like 10 minutes of pushing. So it was absolutely perfect, and she's perfect, and she's here. Matter of fact, she's breastfeeding a little because she likes to soothe herself, fall asleep like that. So say hi, Sophia. Ah, yeah. Sorry, you kind of see myself exposed a little bit there, but oh well, for all my breastfeeding mamas, I know you don't mind. So yeah, so everything was absolutely like, it was a perfect end to a perfect pregnancy. And I can honestly say that it does bother me that I probably will never be pregnant again. I think our family is complete after her. So as far as right now anyway, we feel like our family is complete, and we're both very busy with the 3 kids that we have. So it saddens me a little bit that I may never experience, pregnancy again, but it does make me happy to know that my pregnancy was absolutely wonderful this time, and my labor and delivery was absolutely wonderful, and I did it pain-free, I did it naturally with no medication. It just, I'm just thrilled at all that. So what I'm going to do her 1 month update next week, and I will try to update monthly as far as her progress and how she's doing, and I'll also do a 1 month postpartum update, which I will get up for you guys next week. So I want to thank you so much for following my journey from start to finish. It seemed like forever, but now I look back and it went by so fast. And I want to say congratulations to all the mamas that I followed here on YouTube that had their babies healthy, and everything just worked out perfectly for them as well. So thanks for tuning in, and I hope you tune in to my next set of videos as far as Sophia's progress and my postpartum updates. All right, so have a great day. Thank you.